Welcome to everyone to this special episode on DeFi Labs. And thank you for tuning in. We spotlight the builders behind Web3 most ambitious infrastructures. Today, we're thrilled to host the Annabelle Huang, CEO and the co-founder of the Altius Labs, a team tracking blockchain's toughest performance bottlenecks. Annabelle will share why Altius isn't another blockchain, but a modular execution layer helping chains scale like never before. Hi, how are you doing today? Can you briefly introduce yourself, your background, and your role at the company?
Of course. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Annabelle Huang. I'm co-founder and CEO of Altius Labs. Previously, I've been in the blockchain space for 7 years. I initially was building a very early DeFi platform on top of Ethereum around 2017, 2018, before focusing more on liquidity provisioning, on trading. So I was previously a managing partner at Amber Group, so I've been based in Asia for a couple of years as well. Last year, decided to join forces with a new team. My co-founder came from HFT, high frequency trading background, to build the next generation blockchain infra, where we tackle the execution layer specifically to bring high performance execution to any blockchain.
So the main purpose of our podcast is trying to provide more information to the users in Korea. So many users, they don't actually feel any connection between the founder and the community in Korea. That's the reason why we're trying to have this podcast, trying to bring those two closer together. So could you give us more information? Like I understand that there's a lot of founders actually being involved in the industry since the 2017, 2018 due to the Ethereum boom. Like before that, what was your your main job? What were you doing before that? Like were you into the traditional finance or were you in
Mhm.
marketing? Like could you give us more background about your historical?
Of course, yeah. So I was born and raised in Asia, but I went to the US for college. I studied math and finance, and after I graduated from Carnegie Mellon, I started my professional career in New York, working on Wall Street. Literally, Deutsche Bank was probably the only bank that was left on Wall Street back then. They've since moved as well. But I was more focused on FX structuring and derivatives trading before uh, finding crypto in 2017, I would say. And it was also just by chance that I met the AirSwap co-founders in New York. They also went to Carnegie Mellon, so we were college alums, and they were telling me about the future of finance, of how you can actually move a lot of what we do in the TradFi world on Ethereum with smart contracts and everything. Obviously, that was a really different era. There was not that many people who were on-chain native. It was really difficult to swap tokens on-chain. There's lack of liquidity. So we did try to build AirSwap for a while, and I decided to actually move from New York back to Asia to Hong Kong back then to tackle a different segment of traders. That was when Hong Kong was housing a lot of different exchanges. BitMEX was based in Hong Kong, later on FTX as well. So there were a lot of prop shops, a lot of the more aggressive risk takers based there. So I was trying to onboard more of them to trade on a DEX. Then I realized that the bottleneck on around liquidity provisioning was the most, I would say, the biggest hurdle. So I decided to join force with the Amber Group folks. We all came from similar backgrounds, so I have worked in investment banks on the trading floor for a couple of years before pivoting to crypto. So we decided to build Amber into a leading market maker that trades not only on centralized venues, but also on chain. So we were able to position quite well for the 2020 DeFi boom. We've done some interesting DeFi experiments around MEV, around trading, and continue to build high frequency trading capabilities as well. And Amber Group really grew over the last couple of years. But last year, decided to go back to chase the initial dream, really, to bring more applications, more use cases, more adoption on chain. So wanted to really tackle the next generation infrastructure gap. And that's where Altius was born.
Roger that. And regarding the name of the Altius, it's such a hard name to pronounce for in my opinion. I do not have a background from the Western countries, so could you give us the reason why you actually named the project as Altius? And is there like reasons for it?
Yeah, I would say I'm not the best at naming things. We've been researching and building the project for a while, but we never really settled on the name. And it was last summer. I was watching the Olympics games, and the Olympics model. Part of it is Altius, which means higher. So the full one is faster, stronger, higher. Obviously, like the meaning of achieving higher performance, of always striving for better. And obviously, I think the Olympic spirit of always building something, challenging ourselves. I also really quite like that.
So the name itself actually has a meaning of being the top tier out there.
Yes, and always striving for.
The thing is, as a person that who's currently working in the cryptocurrency like industry, I do understand when it comes to your project, like your tech side, like your narrative side. However, many of the current users may not understand what it means to actually to having the project on purely for execution. Like people understand layer one, layer two, but for the execution, many people might not be able to have enough knowledge to actually to comprehend it. Could you give us a like general like knowledge regarding it? What it means to become a purely on execution?
Of course, it is a difficult technical concept to grasp. I think visually, think of blockchain infrastructure in four layers. So at the bottom, we have settlement. So everything settles on, say, Ethereum or maybe Solana. Or even Bitcoin, and to get everybody to agree to the state of the chain, you have consensus, right? So everybody has to reach consensus before things are reach finality. And usually, the execution layer is considered part of the consensus layer. But as we embrace modularity, we've seen the data availability layer being decoupled. And right now, execution layer itself can also be decoupled from the consensus layer. So I would say the more modular view of the blockchain infra, you would have settlement, you would have consensus, and then you would have data availability. And then execution. And the execution layer itself is really just responsible for executing the smart contracts. So you can get to the current state of the chain to the next block and before it gets confirmed or finalized by the consensus layer and settled to the chain. You can think of a lot of the Ethereum L2s itself as mostly even an execution layer that's part of the scalability solution. And instead of having everything being executed on the Ethereum main chain, you can spin up rollups where you execute there, but you still inherit parts of the mainnet security. But for us, a part of what we're trying to build is to address the scalability issue without requiring spinning up more and more chains, because that also brings liquidity fragmentation and UI UX fragmentation. So what we want to do is to make every chain as performant as Solana or better.
Got it. Is there a like project that you're currently working with? One the audience may heard about before. Like, could you give us some example of the real use cases so the users can track down and then do their own research regarding your project?
Of course. Well, hopefully we should be announcing more partnerships soon too. But the type of partners that we're working with are mostly other chains. So one of our design partner is a EVM compatible L1. It's based on a Cosmos consensus, but it has the EVM execution on top, so we can help them easily boost the performance of their EVM layer. We're also working with a few Ethereum rollup that's using OP Stack. And again, it's fairly simple for them to integrate with our stack and to get a much better performance than the existing Ethereum client or the stacks out there. We wanted to also branch out to other ecosystems, maybe to expand to beyond just EVM implementations into maybe SVM, VM, or other newer generation VMs. Started our implementation within Ethereum virtual machine just because it is the lower hanging fruit per se. There's already a lot of the bottlenecks around EVM itself, and we're tackling it by introducing multi-threading. So instead of sequential execution, we're introducing parallel execution within EVM, and also using more optimized data access. So that's just around some database read and write optimization.
And there's this one question always coming up these days regarding this trilemma about decentralization, security, and the speed. As you all understand, that Sui actually had an issue with decentralization recently after the hacking issue. They showed that the fact that the
Yeah.
Sui was not capable of becoming decentralized. The problem is that the many of the on-chain users were hoping to see the chains are modular, decentralized, and secure. For you, how does your project navigate the trilemma of decentralization, security, and speed with this execution first model?
So it really is to try to just stick to the execution layer itself and not to modify or not requiring our partners to introduce too many changes at the other layers. So with performance, with scalability, right, that's obviously our bread and butter. But the way that we designed the framework is not by introducing more centralization, for example. Way of achieving much better performance is by putting more geographically co-located validators, the sequencers, all running on much bigger machines. Obviously, if you have a higher SSD machine, it can process more and process faster. But then that might result into centralization because not everyone can afford to run a very specialized machine. So the way that we designed our framework is by introducing performance improvements without raising the requirement on the hardware front. So by what my CTO and co-founder has done at Hudson River Trading, a lot of what he's done is around distributed systems, distributed caching, without introducing too much cost on the hardware side. So by building that into our module, we can achieve performance improvement by commodity hardware, which means any machine you can just rent on AWS. So we try to tackle the decentralization part through that. In terms of security, we inherit the security of the underlying VMs that we work on. Again, we're not introducing a new VM. We're not introducing a new language. So there's really no changes in the way that the developers or the security really, how it works within the existing framework. What we do is simply making the execution part, the smart contract execution part, faster and cheaper. And obviously, we could have a lot of the fail safes in place. If there's anything that's wrong with the network, you can always revert back to the current state of the EVM execution. So we are not introducing any additional security risk per se.
Got it. So right now, the market is currently having a new trend, new wave. So people keep talking about RWAs and stuff. But for me, for the tech side, I believe it's the modular will be the trend the blockchain industry is facing. So the modular movement is growing fast right now. Do you see a future where all chains become modular, or is there still room for layer one or layer twos?
Well, I would say L1, L2s and modularity, they're not mutually exclusive. The layer 2 chains, a lot of them are actually by definition modular because they have decoupled the rollup and Ethereum or mainnet settlement. And so I would say we are likely going to see more chains, but instead of more general purpose chains, we're likely, well, I believe that we'll see more application specific chains. And I believe they'll use a more modular approach where they can just pick and choose, where do I get the fastest execution? Where do I get the cheapest DA? Where do I get what consensus protocol is the best? And where should I settle to? So you can see a lot of the almost like Lego pieces. If I'm either a new native app builder or maybe even Web2 or TradFi institutions, this might be how I think about it, as opposed to building a very monolithic L1 myself and to have to grow the ecosystem and rebuild the tech. I think we're past that. It's almost like in Web2, you can just easily spin up your website on a lot of these SaaS providers, and you can rent a node on AWS without having to build your own data center, a physical data center. So I think we're moving to a world where it will be much easier for people to spin up their own app or their own app chain.
So I want to learn more about your project here, more about your project's future. So yesterday, I actually, had a session with the president of the Story Protocol, and he told me that Story was very unique since Story Protocol is a new type of layer one that does not have its own playbook. And I believe the same thing for the Open Execution Network as well. It is something that has been around for a long time. There's not many other cases that we can look into it. So I want to learn like what will be the progress that you guys are thinking of. Like step one, step two, step three. What will be your end game for your project?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think obviously trying to decouple the execution layer to bring optimizations and then build it into an execution layer and an open executor network, the end goal is a very ambitious one, but that's why we're working really hard towards it. So I would say we're at phase one right now, which is building the implementation for different VMs. So we started with EVM, we could expand to other VMs later, and then phase two would be to horizontally integrate those into a almost like a shared execution layer, where Altius ourselves could be even hosting or running the execution for the different chains that are using our stack. And then phase three would be decentralizing or opening access to this so that it's not just Altius ourselves, but many other validators or other players can come in and be a part of this network. So essentially moving from every chain would have its own validator sequencer running purely its own to we can actually share the resources, the storage, the computing power across the network. And the different executors would be incentivized to do that too. We can introduce dynamic load balancing. So say right now, chain A might have a certain traffic or surge, but we can actually manage that load better by spreading out to other networks so that we see less congestion. It's almost like when everyone is watching the same show on Netflix, right? How do you actually manage that load? But if you could have a lot more decentralized set of executors, we can dynamically manage that. So I would say that's really the end goal, where LTS or the Open Executive Network would just be powering the most performant execution network for all the chains.
Correct me if I'm wrong. After listening to the overall the roadmap and also the tech of the Altius, I think I have an image inside my mind. Like, have you seen the Disney channels, like the new series of Loki, where Loki gathers all those different strings of fate to one, and then try to create one layer for all of us. So I think Artilus is actually doing the same thing over here, trying to create one execution layer to provide all different execution to different VMs out there.
I mean, that is really is the goal. I don't think we want to see new developers coming to the space and having to rebuild everything that us or someone else have done. We want to empower the developers to build what matters most for them, to build the application, to build the ecosystem, while we take care of the performance part. So they are always future-proof for performance and scalability.
And for the next part, why don't we move on to the Korean angle and adoption? So have you seen any interest from the Korean market or Korean DeFi users so far right now?
So because we're still early in our implementation, our technical implementation, hopefully once we announce our design partners and we'll have more products in production, then user all over the world, obviously in Korea as well, can indirectly benefit from our stack. Essentially, once we go live with different chains, then all the users on that chain or the developers on that chain will be able to benefit from LTS.
Roger that. And the thing is, are you guys coming to KBW this September? Like, what excites you more about the Korean Web3 ecosystem? As you understand that Korea Web3 ecosystem is quite different and unique from others one out there. We do not focus too much on chain. However, we focus a lot for the tokenomics, since 90% of the users in Korea are currently using the CEXs, and nobody actually uses our DEXs or develops or build on the layer 1, layer 2. So there's a very small room for your project right now, but how you guys are planning on to expand that in Korean market?
Yeah, well, I would say while I was at AirSwap and also Amber, we've looked at a Korean market quite a bit. I used to manage a team in Korea too, so I've experienced how different the market is, but I still really appreciate the enthusiasm that the users there are willing to look into new projects. Like you said, look into tokenomics to see what is happening in the market. Obviously, the user behavior is different, so we're not tackling DeFi per se, but hopefully by even within Korea, I think we're seeing a lot of the enterprises like Line and Kakao making efforts building the Kaya chain and building mini apps on top. We would love to work with a lot of the enterprise chains like that in Korea. And hopefully a lot of users can try these mini games on chain and see the difference in terms of UI UX that we can bring from the Altius perspective. But to answer your question, I'm excited to be in Korea for KBW this year. I wanted to get a sense of what the community is like. Community and brand building is always important to us, even though we are a bit more blockchain or infrastructure focused. But we still would want feedback and want to see the interest from the Korean market. So please do drop me a note if you guys are around. I would love to meet more community members.
Got it. So, like, Korean people develop a little bit of alpha about the projects. Well, is there any major milestones can people expect from the your project over the next 6 to 12 months, or whether there's any new partnership that we should be looking forward to, like whether like new asset classes or ecosystem integration on the horizon?
Yes, so hopefully, even before September, we'll be making some major announcements for our first batch of design partners. I think I've described some of them, right? There are layer ones out there, there are layer twos out there, and even some other more complementary modular stacks. The goal is really to get LT Stack to as many users, end users, as possible via these partnerships. So please keep a lookout for our announcements either on our website, from our blogs, or also from our Twitter or X.
I think you already mentioned this question, but so except for X and Twitter, is there a best space for people to actually go over to actually learn more about your project and also your product?
I would say we keep our social media updated quite regularly, so definitely give us a follow on X at Altius Labs. We also have a very active Discord, and we have launched our ambassador program. So we love to see more participation from Korea as well, and to host more core ambassador meetups or community meetups all over the world, and potentially in Seoul as well. So Discord, X, or
Got it, got it. I will definitely also join your Discord and learn more about your project. Yeah,
awesome.
but this is all the questions that I actually prepared for today. I mean, thank you for coming in today for today's podcast, and thank you for such a great answer and great information. I think Korean community members will definitely love it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, there. Have a good day.
Thank you. Hopefully see you in Seoul in September.